Well, welcome everyone. Thank you, Patrick, for the great introduction. And thank you, all of you, for joining me this morning for my iPhone backup forensics talk. So today I'm going to talk about iPhone backups, what they are, where you can find them, and what sort of forensic artifacts you can get out of them. Before I proceed with the iPhone backups, I just wanted to introduce myself a little bit, and especially that we're here and with a lot of students I hear, so I thought that maybe that would be interesting. So by day, I work as a cybersecurity consultant, mostly for a big bank, but also I do some consulting for small to medium businesses in security architecture, security infrastructure reviews, and this sort of stuff. I used to do internal security at SaaS companies before that, so I'm kind of trying to marry the two. And by night, I'm a self-proclaimed macOS forensics geek. So this has started for me as let's say like a passion project. It was the topic of my dissertation was thumbnail, the life cycle of thumbnail caches in macOS, and that's kind of where it started. So after university, when I graduated, I just continued, going to events, learning, researching a bit myself, and blogging about it. So it was always kind of an after-hours effort for me. And I also love cyber and information security community, OBTS included, as you can probably guess. But I organize meetups and love going to conferences and security meetups. So I would also recommend it to everyone here. Sorry. All right, so let's look at backups. And before we talk about backups, one more thing is what would you need if you wanted to look at them, if you wanted to replicate what I will be talking about at home? Well, first of all, because it's iPhone backups, you'll need an iPhone. You will also need enough storage on your laptop. So for example, my iPhone that I used for these experiments was 256 gigabytes storage. Half of it maybe was full. And as you can see on this slide, the backup was 80 gigabytes. So especially if you're doing multiple, if you want to do some comparisons and stuff like that, then make sure that you have the space for it. You're also going to need the music application. It's native on Apple laptops. So, but I think you can also download it. So yeah, use that to make the backup itself. And also I'm using DB browser for SQLite, which is an open source tool. I feel loved by macOS researchers, very easy to use and good for analyzing any of the databases that you'll encounter. So this is what you will need. And what is an iPhone backup? Maybe you don't know. So basically it's a set of files and your files and configurations of your mobile device. We're talking about iPhones, but you can have backups of other Mac devices as well. With an iPhone backup, you can store it locally on your computer, or you can store it in the cloud, and it can be encrypted or unencrypted. If you make it locally on your computer, the default is unencrypted. And if you store it in the cloud, the default is encrypted. Today, we're going to look at the local backup, unencrypted as well, mostly because it's easier, but also because it's the default option. So I think that a lot of users who just would click through things and just click next on things like this. So so that's our focus here, and it also contains a lot of different artifacts. There are some things such as health data that would only be included in an encrypted backup. So it's not one-to-one the same, but it has enough to get us started. So the backup basics, let's say that we want to have to make the backup itself. When you connect your iPhone to your laptop, In music, that's what you're going to see. So you can see some basic information about the device, like the model and how much storage there is available, the name of the device, even battery level. And you can see that under backups, there are there's the two options for the iCloud backup and the local backup. There is an option to encrypt the local backup, as I said, but it's unselected by default. If this is not the first time that you back up your device, you can click on Manage Backups, and then you see the different backups that already exist on your device. Otherwise, we click Backup Now, and the backup will be created. Especially the first time, it can take some time, but not very long. I think between 5 and 10 minutes was my experience. So after the backup is completed, and you will get to see the progress in the music app, you can find it in your home directory /library application support mobile sync backup. And inside that backup folder, there will be another folder, which is the name of it is the unique identifier of the device. And within that top folder, there will be 256 folders with data. And we don't know yet what data this exactly is, but we'll learn soon enough. And also, there are 4 key files which with like more descriptive names. And those are the 4 files: info, status, and manifest.plist, and also a manifest database. So out of curiosity, have you ever interacted with plist files before? Yeah, so I see that. I don't have to talk too much about it, but sometimes it's a weird format for people to see. So let's look at those plist files first. Info.plist contains general information about the device and its state at the moment of the backup. So here's a screenshot. You can see some things such as device name, display name. We have those IMEI numbers. I always have to check that acronym in my head. There are 2 for iPhone 15 because I've actually researched this because I was wondering why, as this number, if you do any mobile forensics, you will see this used a lot, as it's supposed to signify or be connected to the device itself. But in iPhone 15, because you can have 2 SIM cards on at the same time, so you can have a data plan, for example, on one, and then a different SIM card for calling, it has 2 of those numbers. Again, we see the unique identifier that we have seen in the other folder, and we also have a timestamp, and that's the last backup completion date. So that's important. That's why I put the completion in bold, because there will be a number of different dates in different places, and they are not all kind of something that you would describe as the backup date. So this is when the backup was completed. There's also a list of installed apps. So here you can see that it's 61 items, so pretty standard maybe for a phone that you use every day. There are some kind of self-explanatory things, I would say. So if you see those bundle names, such as Facebook Messenger, you know what it is. You see Signal, you see WhatsApp. But there will be things that are not so obvious just from reading. So for example, for me, I saw this IO B2A bank prod, and I was like, what is that? I have like 5 different bank apps. Turns out it was Monzo Bank. So sometimes Google is your friend if you don't know what something is. But another thing to keep in mind is that just because it's called something doesn't mean it is that. So if you're dealing with some maybe potentially malicious scenarios, then it's just a name. Just keep that in mind. The next file is status.plist. So this is general info about the backup itself. So we have another date here, and this date is a backup creation start date. So you will probably not remember, but the other date was like a couple of minutes later than this one. The time was later, so that was when the backup was completed, but this is when it was initiated. So this one is pretty short. And Another one, next up is Manifest.db list. So this one has even more details on application bundles installed on the device. But you can see here that we actually have 1,200, over 1,200 items. So these are all sorts of applications, also like operating system low-level ones, not only the type that you go and install through App Store. So there will be much more here. Also, another source for some things like the model of your device, such as the iPhone, and also another date. And this date is not the date of when the backup was created. This date, and this is my theory, I think that this file, if you already have a backup on your device, it potentially is not getting updated every time you back up. It depends in if there was a change in your applications, but this is my theory. It would be great if someone checked it. So if you want to have a go at this and do some experiments like I did, then have a go. But it is definitely not the date when the backup was started or completed. And now we move on to the database. So Manifest.db is an SQLite database with two tables in it, files and properties. So we'll focus on the files database table because this is basically like a phone book. Although I don't know if that that analogy means anything to you, but it's basically like an index of all the files within the backup. So first look at Manifest.db. We've got a number of fields: file ID, domain, relative path, and there's also flags and data that you can't see, but believe me, it is there. And basically, the file name will be under relative path. So if you want to, if you're looking for something specific, or if you want to filter for specific file types, feel free to use, the DB browser. Just put in the extension there, and you can look for .sqlite, .db, PNG, whatever, PDF. Obviously, in the DB browser application, there's also an option to write SQL queries. So feel free to do that if you want. But this is something you can kind of do live and see what's in there before you get to your scripting. So the file ID field is actually a SHA-1 hash of the domain, a dash, and then the relative path to a file. So you can see here that I took a file ID of the call history.sqlite, which is a database with call history from WhatsApp, and I created that same hash in the online hash generator just to get the same file ID. So this is helpful because it means that we can, this is also the file name within the backup itself. So we can use that file ID to find it within that 256 folders that we looked at previously. So because I was talking about the WhatsApp call history, this is an example of, this is a screenshot of what tables can be found in that specific database. We're not going to go into detail of this specific database, but just to show you that every application will have its own way of storing the artifacts. So a lot of looking at these things is just checking how each application deals with that. So this is what WhatsApp looks like. Again, feel free to have a go on your own computers and see what you can find from this. So when I talked about the file ID, maybe actually I will go back. When you look at the file ID, the domain and the relative path, there actually isn't anything specific to the device in this path or in this domain. So that means that when you get the file ID and the hash, you can basically make your own list of files of interest, and you can reuse that later if that, for example, you'll be looking at a lot of backups one after another. Obviously, things change, and as applications get updated, all of this can change. But if at the same time you're working with a lot of backups, it's a good list to maintain. So here I just listing some other files of interest. So there's an SMS database that stores your messages. There's notes.sqlite with your notes. And there are some other WhatsApp ones as well. So it's not only the call history, there's also chat storage and contacts. And some ideas about what you might want to look for. So obvious things such as messenger apps or social media probably is the first thought. Travel apps, especially if you're trying to reconstruct, users' behaviors and know what the user has done. That's a good shout to check. And I like to look at maybe more local and less popular applications. So think things like maybe a local parking app or something like this, something that's less popular, than maybe WhatsApp, because there might be not the same kind of amount of focus on security and not really this many people looking into it. So that might be an interesting place to look for something new. So we talked a lot about how the backup is structured, but obviously if your job was to analyze backups, you wouldn't do it manually, by browsing the data in the database. So obviously there are tools that can do it for you. So any commercial forensic software like Elcomsoft or Celebrite will have modules to parse this, but they are usually quite pricey, and I don't think a lot of people really have access to them unless you work in digital forensics. Then you probably will through work, but it's quite inaccessible to us mortals, let's say. So there is an open source alternative, a tool written by a researcher called Alexis Brignoni, and this tool is a Python, written in Python, called iLeap, and that stands for iOS logs, events, andplists parser. And it also takes the backup as input, so that is an option if you want to automate some of it. And just before I let you go, I just wanted to mention a bit about why I was interested in backups and why I was looking at it. So it's easier to obtain than having to do a full physical acquisition, and I found it especially interesting that and like special that it's something that you can sometimes get almost by accident. So if you are investigating a laptop, you might find those files on a laptop, so you don't even need physical access, or even you don't need to know that an iPhone exists to get your hands on some of these artifacts. So I think that's and even more so if we're talking about the cloud stored backup. So it does contain key point-in-time information, and also it's been used in key cases in real life and in key investigations. So one example is, for example, the Hunter Biden scandal. 2 iCloud backup files were used in the investigation. I think it was an iPad and an iPhone backup that was checked there. And another thing here, there's an excerpt from Amnesty International's report that some artifacts available in the backup were also used to indicate as one of the indicators that the Pegasus spyware is present on your device. So obviously it wasn't the only one, but it was part of that as well. So we can see that even though it's quite like maybe low-hanging fruit and not as exciting as some other artifacts might seem, it's still very useful, and it can actually play to our advantage. Thank you so much, and I hope you found this interesting. I wrote a blog post version of this talk, and it's on my website. So if you want to follow the steps, that's probably going to be easier. And yeah, if you have any questions, I'm not sure if we can take questions now, or I'll be here for the rest of the day. So yeah, just yeah, you can ask questions now. Thank you.